Hello and welcome, beautiful humans, to this episode of the podcast. Today, I have a very special guest. She is so courageous. She wrote this book that was part of her healing process and becomes very vulnerable, shares like the depths of her soul in this book. I don't even have the words for it. I was so moved by it. I read it over the course of a couple of days, and it felt like she was telling parts of my story. I am so happy to have her here, Miss Christine Marie. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm so delighted to be here and to share this space with you. This is going to be an amazing connection and conversation.
Yes. Let's just dive in. So, your book is called Breaking Free, a self-healing journey. Let's go back. Like you talk about childhood in it. Can we start there? I think it would be nice to go kind of chronologically through your journey.
Yeah, absolutely. We can definitely start there.
So tell me about your childhood.
Okay.
That's a broad question, right?
Yeah. Well, I grew up in Lake Orion, Michigan, with a mother that suffers from schizophrenia and a father that has been in his own substance abuse relationship for even since before I was born. Growing up, he was more of an alcoholic and then turned into heavy drugs later on. And so my whole childhood was really from the ages of when I was born to about 6 years old, I was pretty neglected emotionally, physically, in all of the ways. As a little child, it's interesting because when I think back to my childhood now, um, I just, I hold so much grace and so much love for her, but she grew up feeling so unseen, unheard, and unloved, um, and didn't have the protection or the emotional availability that she needed. And when I say she, I'm just talking to the little girl within. And I also I have four older sisters that have gone through, like, we have, of course, the same parents. I do have a half sister, but our experiences were completely different because we were each either taken away from our parents at different ages or being bounced back and forth through foster care and all of that. So we all kind of weren't even together. Um, And when I was 6, my aunt and uncle, who is my father's sister, they deemed guardianship over us after we were kicked out of our house, of our apartment, because my dad couldn't pay the rent. So, blessing in disguise, of course, my father, he just didn't have the capacity to give us what we needed as children, and we were saved by my aunt and uncle, until I grew up and old enough to become independent. So with all that being said, growing up, it was a lot of trauma, a lot of feeling like I couldn't express my full self out of fear of creating more chaos in the home, out of fear of my dad getting angry and lashing out or taking it out on my mother. Um, and yeah, it was a time where I feel like I just was in survival mode for most of my younger years, and I didn't realize it until I grew up and realized of like it was just reflected in a lot of my relationships to others and relationship to myself, of just how I just couldn't find love within, how I didn't feel love within, and how the stories of my younger days became my identity than more than who it was I truly am underneath all of that.
So you're identifying with a story that was placed on you even when you were out of that story, kind of. Is that?
Yeah. Yeah.
And how did you start to kind of like wake up to that was the story and that was actually separate from you? I mean, it was a part of your journey, of course, but it was no longer serving you or your reality in the moment.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest with you, it was just like I felt, well, moving, so let's fast forward a little bit. In college, I was in a toxic relationship, one that was physically, emotionally abusive. Um, and it was my first love. It was something I, held so near dear to my heart. And then when that relationship ended, I felt my whole world fall apart. Um, and there was so much shame. There was so much shame about why I was there, what other people thought of me, did other people believe me? Why did I allow myself to be in a relationship that didn't serve me? And a couple of years go by and I'm still grieving so much of this pain that was inside that relationship. Like it was just hanging on to me, and I'm just I started to go down like this really big spiral of, quote unquote depression, and I couldn't take it anymore. And one night I remember I literally hit the cold bathroom floor, and I just sobbed and I sobbed and I sobbed, and I just said, I cannot live like this anymore. Like I'm in so much internal pain. I'm in so much misery. Like life felt meaningless to me, and I wanted to honestly end my life. Like I was just like, what is the point? Why am I here? And that night on the bathroom floor was the biggest blessing I could have ever asked for, because I woke up the next morning and I just said, enough is enough. Like I realized I was creating my reality. It was just like this whisper that told me that this isn't the way that your life is supposed to be, and you can change it, but you have to face all in which you've tried to bury or leave behind. And that was about going within to face my own shadows and my own pain that I've been suppressing and repressing since childhood.
So, how did you trust that whisper? Because I feel like a lot of people probably listening, and myself included, you hear that little like, is it intuition? Is it like a voice in your head? Is it God? What is it? Is it your higher self? And then do we trust it? How did you know to trust it and that it was coming from within and believe what it was saying?
Because for me, that was the only option. And when my intuition speaks, I know like it's guiding me towards a path in which, when I look at the other path that's, opposite of that, it's like I can't go there. Like
Like a hard
it's
no.
just it's a hard no. Like if I go down this path, I'm not going to want to be alive. I'm not going to be in my purpose. I'm not going to be in alignment with who I truly am. So it's just this like, it felt like I had no choice, honestly. It was just like this huge rock sitting on my chest, being like, all or nothing here. And so I began the journey to look within.
In that moment, like, had you explored kind of your inner workings before that moment, or was this a big shift in your first
You know,
awakening to it?
I did. There were parts that like synchronicities and serendipitous moments, and I was like heavily involved in like yoga and meditation and traveling solo. But it wasn't it still felt like I was at the superficial like layer. Like I haven't really dove deep into myself. It was just like, oh, I'm making myself feel better, like surface level, but inside I was just like, why don't I feel better? Why do I feel so much self-deprecation? Honestly, it all came back to like how little self-love I had for me. And so yeah, I think all the pieces were kind of starting to put together, and this was just like my divine moment to really surrender.
Mm. What did that surrender look like?
Oh my gosh. It was it was so difficult. It was just like, okay, Christine, you are going to be you're going to dedicate however long you need to in order to heal yourself. Like you're just going to do that. And it meant reaching out for support with therapy. It meant allowing myself the time and space to connect with me, even though I think a lot of the times we're so afraid of what we're going to find,
Mhm.
right? And so it was just like this complete surrender of like, okay, I'm just going to be, and I'm just going to follow what's calling me and ask for support. And that was that was everything. I remember I went to my first therapy session, and I sat down and I told her, I was just like, yeah, I feel like, I'm going to be here for like maybe 2 or 3 months, and then I'm going to be healed.
Mhm.
And she starts laughing and she was just like, Christine, you have endured a lot of trauma, more trauma than many of my clients have. And there's a lot here. There's a lot for you here. And I was just like, I like cocked my head. I was like, oh, she doesn't know, like I've been doing my work. And then like from that moment on, I was just like tears and tears and tears every session, and complete and total like shit. She was right. There's so much to unpack here that I haven't even been brave enough yet to really look at. And it was painful. It
Mhm.
was so painful and so uncomfortable. But after I started to dig and dig and dig into my inner landscape, I realized how I'd been living my identity, right? Attached to these stories, these traumas, these circumstances that happened for me, not to me, for me. And underneath it all, I began to uncover my divine essence, my truth, my purpose, my power, my resilience, my strength, my everything. And that was the treasure underneath the dirt.
Mm. Mhm. Like the lotus flower has to go through the mud to get up to the sun to bloom.
Absolutely.
I'm curious, you talk about when you first kind of took the deep dive into this journey, which I agree with the layers, man. You think you've like healed something and then the layers just keep coming. But you were talking about finding time and space to connect with yourself. What does that look like? And what would you maybe share are some tips and tools for the listeners that might want to dive a little deeper with themselves?
Yeah, that's a great and powerful question. So realizing that like your self-care and your self-health and needs are most important, right? Because we can't fill from an empty cup. Or like we can't give from an empty cup, rather. And at the time I was full on, nursing 3 days a week, 12-hour shifts. I was burnt out always. So I had to make myself a priority. I started taking myself on artist dates, going to the coffee shop to just like write for hours, waking up every morning doing this Ramadasa mantra meditation. I did that for months and months and months. And I lit an incense and I would just sit there and sing this mantra that was all about universal healing. And then I would give myself like an hour in the morning to just like write. Um and yeah, I just did what I needed to do for myself. I really listened to my body. I really listened to the needs of my heart and my soul. And so I I would share just that, like, when you're feeling overwhelmed or feeling like you need more space for yourself, in that moment, ask self, what do you need right now? Is it a bath? Is it a walk in nature? Is it singing in the car with the windows down?
Mm,
Whatever that is, whatever that medicine is that you have within, like, it's there. It just is asking for your attention.
yeah. And how do you tune into that? Like, what was your process with really tuning into that inner voice,
Mm.
being able to
Med-
take pause? Go ahead.
oh, it's just meditation and writing, both both changed my life every day. I wouldn't skip a morning. I couldn't. Even before my 12-hour shift, like I would wake up at 5:30 to do it. Um it was it was difficult, but it was like, again, that I have no choice but to do this, but to care for myself, because I was completely running on empty, and I knew, again, like, there was no way out but through.
Mm, yeah. Yeah, you have to feel it all. And in my experience, the more you try to avoid a feeling, the bigger it becomes and the scarier it becomes and the harder like and then it leads to depression and anxiety because you're not facing it. But when you can actually sit with it and like make friends with it and look at it and say, okay, this is okay and this will pass. It it moves through so much quicker. This is something I've been working through in the last couple of years is like, okay, it's okay to sit with it. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be hurt or angry or frustrated or any of it. Like it's easy to sit with the happy, quote unquote, positive emotions, but the darker side, we're not taught, or at least I wasn't taught emotional intelligence as a kid to be able to sit with. And it's normal to have these emotions and it's okay. And it's actually it's not just normal, it's like it's a part of life. It's you will have these emotions and our power is in how we move through them.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I came up with this like a couple months ago. Like, our emotions are our expanders. Like, it is so, and I'm a sensitive being. I'm an empath. I feel a lot. And I was so ashamed of that for so long because, like you said, our society saw that, really as a weakness of being sad or in pain or grieving. but really like how much strength and vulnerability and beauty lies in feeling the pain and going through the process, because if we don't feel it now, it'll show up some other way, whether that is a physical ailment, a toxic relationship, a huge disconnection to self and to the greater collective. Like it shows up in a worse way. So that's where we have to take responsibility for our own journeys and really really embrace all of who it is we truly are.
How do you do that? How do you embrace all that you are?
I'm still learning, sister. But I'll be honest with you, like this book, Breaking Free, expressing my shadows and expressing my truth and just myself as a whole, all parts of me, liberated me in a way, literally broke me free in a way that I never knew would. I knew it was like the call. It was this burning desire in my chest for 4 years to write this book. I didn't know why. I didn't exactly know what it was really going to entail. All I knew is that spirit was asking me to write it and to not give up on it. And boy, did I want to give up. I wanted to give up so many times. So many times. But when I published it and once it was out there, out of my control, to people that I didn't even know, it was just like I was allowing myself to set myself free of judgment, of criticism, of people not believing me, all of it. Because you know what? At that moment, I realized I know who I am. I know who I am. I am not what they think. I'm not what they say. I'm not what I went through, but I'm this divine soul being that is here to make a great impact on the world and to help lift the consciousness of the collective so we can heal and grow and evolve. And when I came back to that why, that purpose, that why, nothing else mattered.
That means you're in your path. You were doing it. You're doing it right now. That was, I love when things flow through you like that. That was how this podcast started. It was not even my idea. It was like, this needs to be birthed and it's coming through you. You're the channel. Okay, let's see what happens. I'll go on this ride.
Exactly. Yeah. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, what a beautiful way, because once we see ourselves as these whole, complete divine beings, we see other people the same way. And what a gift that is, right? What a gift that is to bridging connection and love and meaning between us when we live in such a disconnected and divided world.
Yeah. I find that in the modern world, with all of our technology and advertisements and everything that's constantly trying to pull our attention and tell us how to be, we've lost the sense of connection, which I think is so deeply ingrained in our human experience. Like, I mean, if we want to go back to the beginning of time, we couldn't exist. We would not survive without each other. And though physically we can, emotionally, I don't think we can. I just don't think that's possible. So yeah, when we can like create that space and see somebody, like really truly see them and honor them exactly where they're at, whether it's in the middle of like the biggest dark night of the soul, messiest, crazy little spot in their life, or like, they're divinely connected and like in their power across the board. If we can just accept and see people, like you said, see the love, the divine being that's inside each of them. And that's what you're doing. And I love it. And there's more and more people doing this. And that's what this podcast is all about. That's what your work's about. Like, we're all in this together. Let's just lift each other up. Like,
Yeah.
it's that
Yeah.
simple.
Yeah. Yeah. And we can't really begin to lift each other up until we lift ourselves up first.
Mm. Hmm. Yes, that's very powerful statement right there. It starts with us.
Hmm.
Tell me about writing Breaking Free. How did this, you said it was a 4-year process. How, like, did you write as a child or did this just kind of come to you one day? What was the journey?
Mm. Oh, I don't think I've really talked about this yet. So, yeah, thank you for asking. I've written since I was a little girl. That was the way in which I was able to express my emotions in a safe space, especially because I felt like I couldn't in my environment. Um, so, journaling always, or like, and I'm super connected to music. So, music and lyrics and poetry would always just bring out this sense of understanding that I was looking for. And yeah, and so I wrote more as I got older, and in high school I would write a lot of poetry. Even like in the fourth grade, like one of my poems was in the Romeo Observer of a hometown that my hometown, and like that was the beginning. And then one of my other poems, my English teacher in high school, she wanted to to send it to this contest, and I was just like, no, no, like I'm not good enough, no way. So I always loved writing. I didn't really know how good of a writer I was, or I believed that I wasn't good enough. And then in college, like, yeah, it was always like about love and romance and pain and heartbreak. Like that was just where the writing inspiration came from most of the time. And then I just kept doing it. Like, and the more I did it, the better I got, and the more I felt free and just in my mind and my body and my soul. Like it was just this unraveling of like, oh my gosh, this is making me feel so much better, and I'm discovering myself so much more than I ever thought I would. And it was just like magic. And then I started to, just writing these little quotes and poems, and in my journal. And I was just like, wow, this feels really powerful. This feels really like something that's healing for me. And then I went into the bookstore in Portland called Powell's, and I saw. Do
I
you know
love that
Powell's?
story. Yeah.
Oh, it's amazing,
It
right?
is. Yes.
Fantastic. Yeah. And I walked to the shelf and I saw Rupi Kaur's Milk and Honey in the bestseller section. And I picked it up and I read the whole thing like in an hour, and I just sobbed and cried and whatever. And I was just like, wow, we write very similarly. Like we have a similar way of expressing ourselves. And people see this. People need this clearly if it's on the bestseller list, and I'm here sobbing my eyes out, like it's speaking to me. And that was like the light bulb moment of, I'm going to do the same thing, but in my own authentic way. And I knew I always wanted to write a book since I was a young girl, and I knew it was going to be about my life story, but I didn't know what the heck it was going to be. And as I started this self-healing, self-discovery journey and really unraveling these layers of myself, I just realized like how powerful these words were healing me. So imagine how much more powerful it could be for the collective that has gone through similar experiences. Um, Especially, in my book, there's a raw section where I talk about the intimate partner abuse relationship. And those were the easiest poems for me to write, but the hardest for me to share.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And there was so much fear around that entire part of the book because of shame, guilt, what will people think? What will he think? Will people think I'm weak or trying to get attention or some, all these things. And I'm just like, this is my truth. This is what I went through. This is how it impacted me. And that's all that matters. And how other people respond, that's not my responsibility. So it was a lot of working on my inner critic, working on my self-doubt, and really coming back, like I said before, to my why and my purpose. And the more I started writing the poems and putting them all together, the less it became about me and the more it became about other people. And again, it was just like I can't not share this because there are women and men out there right now going through these experiences, especially during COVID culture time, and they need help and they need to see that they are able to break free from their disheartening experiences.
Yeah, it's like you're giving a roadmap. You're giving voice to something that some people maybe can't even express for themselves yet. And then another piece of it is you're showing what's possible in the healing journey. Like you're giving people hope.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for saying that. I find when, especially in a partnership that's really, debilitating and kind of strips every ounce of you away, it's really hard to find hope and self-love and acceptance. So thank you. That just validates the purpose of my story.
Of course. I mean, I was telling Christine before we got on here that I read her book in 3 nights. There's 3 sections. So I read before I go to bed. So nice full section. And in the first section, I was like, oh, I need to like make this. I need to make a note of this and this and this poem. Because I don't like to dog ear my books. I don't like to mess them up. But this one's gonna like have writing all over it. And like I'm gonna use it as an oracle to like read what I need to that day. It's dog eared all over the place. And I was gonna maybe bring up some poems, but I was wondering if maybe you might read one about those relationships that you had in your adult life that were so easy to write but hard to share. If you would share one of those with us, whichever
Yeah,
one
absolutely.
speaks to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I already know which one.
Yay!
Thank you. I haven't done spoken word in a while, so this will feel really good. Let me just get to the page here. I remember passing her by, sizing her up, as every spark of light dimmed from her eyes. I wanted to scream, I hope he treats you better than he did me. But the hollowness of her body, I recognized all too well. It was as if I was looking at myself in the mirror 1 year ago. I thought I was beautiful. I thought I was consumed with love. But what kind of love is worth losing yourself for?
I literally just got chills all over my body when you were reading that. There's so
Mm.
much power in it. Mm. and truth. Like you can just feel the truth oozing out of it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Do you want
So
me to read another one? Sorry.
yeah, I mean, I want you to just read the whole book to me. You should do an audio book.
I'm actually in the works. I'm in the works behind that,
Yay.
and something really
Yes.
special too.
Ooh.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, I can recite another one, or if you want to say, one that you really resonated with, and we can talk about it, whatever
Ooh.
you're feeling called.
Ooh. I have like so many of them dog-eared. Um, I just opened to 225. You want to read that one?
Yeah.
Ooh, or 227. See? Oh,
Which one?
okay.
Both?
um, I think 227. Let's go 227.
Once you begin to embrace your vulnerabilities and open yourself up to the world responds with more love, more compassion, more truth than you could possibly imagine. The only person holding you back from your destiny is the person staring back at you in the mirror. Let go of your fear of failure and trust your ethereal interior to guide you back home.
Hmm.
Mm,
We are the only ones holding ourselves back, right? But it's
totally.
so easy to point fingers at anything, and I'm totally guilty of this. Like it's their fault, it's the circumstances fault, it's the weather's fault, like XYZ, anything. I could blame things on anything, but it all comes back to me. And am I going to show up for myself and do the hard things? Because that's a big part of it too. I feel like in the hard things, I mean the uncomfortable things. That's where the magic really is.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I just got chills as
Mm.
you said that. Yeah, absolutely. And how many times have I even blamed my parents for my own path, right? And yeah, there are things that I wish were different. There are things that I wish I didn't have to go through. But to be honest with you, I wouldn't change a single thing because I know that I was a soul born on this earth to go through the things I needed to go through in order to heal and gather wisdom in that healing to help others heal themselves. And I am who I am because of all the things that happened to me, that happened for me. And what a freaking gift that is.
Hmm. I love the reframe of things aren't happening to me, they're happening for me. There's always an opportunity in every experience. It's like you were saying, it's guiding you somewhere, it's showing you your true path or redirecting you back to your true path.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Yes. And I believe that's where we find a lot of our feelings of disconnection to ourselves and to other people because we're not willing, some of us are not willing to go there, and some of us are continuing to blame our entire world, our entire experience on everything else but us. And I am a believer that there's a silver lining and a lesson that we go through that we must learn in order to grow and to heal and to evolve and love. And some people, and everyone's experience is different. Everyone's journey is different. There's no comparison.
Mm-hmm. And we all get to that point at a different point, different places in our life, right? Like some people just kind of, I don't know if you're, I don't know, if you're like Buddha or something, you come into this life and you kind of already have some knowledge, but some people, like, we might make it through this whole lifetime and never start that journey. Maybe that's for our next lifetime. But hearing the call and trusting the call when it does come, and planting the seeds, and doing the work for yourself, you're planting the seeds for those around you. And maybe they'll water it, maybe they won't, but it's not your responsibility. Like you were saying earlier, it's we take care of ourselves first. And in that, we can give so much more and heal the collective.
Yes, absolutely.
you mentioned
Absolutely.
you mentioned depression, and I would love to like touch on that a little bit. That's something that I have experienced in my life on and off. I don't know if anxiety is also part of your past, but I was always like an anxious kid, and then definitely depression. And um, I'm actually on medication right now. Like I started medication years ago in a really tough place and have cut it down, but still on a little bit. But what I feel like I realized is that the further I got from myself, the more depressed I got. And the more I tried to ignore the feelings, the stronger they had a hold on me. I'm curious if you have anything to add to that, or similar experience, or maybe yours is completely different.
No. Well, first of all, thank you so much for sharing that vulnerably, and and that resonates with me a lot. I definitely, I mean, I've been in and out of depression and anxiety for years, and to be honest with you, I haven't really felt a wave of depression um in about 2 years. Um and I'm not saying I'm completely healed from the depression, but I feel this is the way that I look at depression. And this may or may not resonate with you or anybody that's listening, but depression is literally depressing our emotions,
Mm,
depressing our truth, depressing everything that comes up because we are ashamed or we don't want to go there because it hurts too badly. And I will be honest with you, I completely get that. I completely 110% understand why people numb themselves. I I've done it too, and I do it too from time to time. Absolutely. I'm not completely perfect. But all I can say is the more that you face that inner conflict or that pain or that trauma or whatever it is that's actually at the root of what you're feeling of that depression, because there's always a root there. It's not something usually that's like happening in your present moment. Usually it's something more deeper than that, especially if it lasts longer, right? And so when you get to that root and you face it, and then you come out of it with, tears or shaking or whatever way you're able to face and release it, you gain that much more self-trust with your internal strength in order to continue on facing more of these emotional, painful experiences. And that self trust and that resilience is going to be your momentum to keep being able to go back into these roots so you can alchemize, you can feel that pain, release it, alchemize it, and turn it into wisdom for yourself and for other people. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes, that makes a lot of sense and resonates deeply with me. Yeah, it's interesting that you talk about the root because I feel like that's something that I'm able to uncover some of the roots, and there's more roots to uncover. And I've said for a while, like I don't want to put a band-aid on things. I don't want to just like cover things up or make it better for a moment, like I want to get down to it and like clear it out. Like let's work through it and remove it. Just
Mhm.
like you would, I don't know. I don't have a good analogy, but like let's clear it out. Like if you're trying to remove a weed from the yard, you're going to get the whole root or it's going to grow back. Like,
Exactly.
yeah,
That's a perfect
I
analogy.
know. We'll just cut that middle part out.
But exactly. And, growing up with a father that constantly ran away from his pain and seeing how that impacted his life and is still impacting his life and his addiction and how it has impacted my life as, his daughter. That was my example to not do that. Like, I could have gone 2 ways. I could have repeated that same pattern as him. I could have, he didn't give me the love that I needed. He, neglected me. He abandoned me. He did all these things. He broke promises. He completely self-destructed and is still self-destructing today. And I could let that I could own his story as my own. This is where ancestral healing the ancestral line comes from, right? So I could take a story as my own and do the same patterns, or I could see that's not where I want my life to end up. That's not my path, that's not my journey. I'm going to choose the opposite. I'm going to face my pain. I'm going to be real and honest with myself. I'm going to let myself fucking cry and scream and do whatever I need to do in order to get through this, because his path, absolutely not. And I see how much he struggles, and it freaking pains me to my core. And there's nothing I can do to change him. The only thing I can do is heal within and hope that spreads in my ancestral line. And if it doesn't, it's also not it's not the part of his soul and his journey this lifetime. And that's not my responsibility.
Yeah. I'm curious how putting this book out, how has that affected your relationships?
That's a very vulnerable question to ask. So thank you. Um, I mean, since we're on the subject of my father, he keeps saying he's going to read it, but I doubt it. He's still in his addiction, and I don't know where he is right now. So, to be honest with you, I don't really want him to read it, but if he does, then I have to be okay with that. And same thing for, my ex-partner. I have no idea if he read it. I have no idea if he will, but I have to be okay with his response. And honestly, it's like a part of me hopes he does, and they do, because that will, my hope is that maybe it will uncover some truths within themselves that they need to look at. But again, not my responsibility either way, you know.
Mhm.
So, and to be honest with you, like my whole family, I was terrified. Oh my gosh. I I mean, sometimes I am like, why did I allow all of my nearest and dearest to read like my heart and soul and like, oh, there's just so much there's so much heaviness in this book. Um, but honestly, I I couldn't have gotten the most beautiful, profound feedback from them. Like the encouragement, the support, the love, the acceptance. And I think I'd been longing for that for a very long time. And maybe this was my gateway to receiving that because this is a part of me, you know. So, yeah. Yeah.
What did it feel like the day that you first held your book in your hands?
Like I just birthed a baby.
I bet. I bet you did. You did a creative baby.
Yeah, it was you know, I have this relationship with my little girl, and so once Breaking Free was born and she was in my arms and I got to, you know, read her and hold her and mother her and, you know, just embrace her, I like just checked in with my little girl of like, how are you feeling? Because this is a lot of her expression, right? This is most of her expression. And I could just feel like her spirit be one of joy and freedom and just like she just wanted to be heard. She just wanted to be seen. She just wanted to be loved. And that was her portal. And I'm so freaking happy that I was that vessel for her. It changed like the day that I published my book, like I couldn't I could feel a little bit of shifts, you know, but a month later I feel like a completely different person.
Tell me more about that. What was Christine a month or two ago versus Christine now?
um there's still a lot of fear of being seen, a lot of fear of being heard, a lot of that fear of which I talk in that book, like that was still there. And a lot of still coming back to these old stories of my traumas and a lot of anger and bitterness towards my parents and towards, you know, myself especially. I had a lot of anger towards me, and I had this moment where I was in an ayahuasca ceremony in Costa Rica where I just had this flashback of like my mother and my father's experience as children and like their trauma because they had both been through quite a bit. And I felt this like rippling open in my heart of just like forgiveness. And it was like this visceral feeling of forgiveness I've never felt before in my life. And I'm not saying I completely forgive them. I'm not saying I'm completely healed from all that. I'm still working through it. It's a journey for sure. But it was just like the knowing of I was able to break myself free from this victimhood of owning their stories as my own. And that's not also what they've been, that's not their fault either. Like they did the best that they could, you know. So breaking free, expressing all of this, expressing my shadows and my darkness and my hope and my wisdom. I just felt like I'd finally accepted me, because to put out a book like this, I really can't care about what other people are going to think. I can't. Like if I do, I'll be crushed, you know.
Mm,
So it was like this feeling of full self-acceptance that I've never felt before.
that's profound. I mean, it is your baby. It's your heart and soul. It's your experience. I bet it feels naked. Like you probably feel naked and exposed in putting it out.
Yeah, there was this definitely this big void that left once it was out there, and I had to sit and grieve that, because it was no longer mine to hold.
Mm. That's beautiful that you bring. Oh, were you gonna say something?
No,
I
it's
was,
okay.
I was gonna say it's beautiful that you bring that up because I think a lot of journey we go through the healing and we just kind of expect like, okay, we did the thing that we knew we needed to do, that spirit or our higher selves, whatever you want to call it, was guiding us to do, and then we expect to just feel better instantly. But that piece about the grieving, that is such a key. You have to go through that. You're changing, like you are losing a piece of you, something that in your case I imagine was a huge piece of your identity for such a long time. So to let that go, then it's like, who am I now,
Mm-hmm.
and how do I fit in, how do I relate to everybody and everything that's been there, known me with this piece.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, I just have chills. There's so much there. Yes. Yeah. I celebrated for the first evening after the book launch, and then the next 3 weeks I was a mess. I was anxious, I was overwhelmed, I was definitely burnt out, I was sad, and I was lost. I felt lost and not in control. And that's hard as humans, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
But I just allowed myself to just like accept that part of it, because I knew, you know, the beautiful thing is like when I answered the call to write this book and share it, I thought it was for X reason, right? And then once I wrote it and shared it and got to really like reflect and feel and look back on the journey, and now I'm raising it, right? So this is another part of the journey. It's like, oh my gosh, I did not expect all of the things that came up to come up. Like, and that's another layer of the journey. It was like spirit's like, yeah, this is a part of it, but also this is going to heal you too in a way that you have no idea. And to just recognize that I definitely at one point, so many people, not so many, a handful of people knew I was writing this book. And I was just like, this book is me. This book is me. This book is me. Like, this is who I am. And then releasing it, I was like, oh shit, no, it's not. Like, okay, no, it's not. Right? And you're
Uh-huh.
like, Oh, okay. Another form
Oh,
of, you know, like trying to identify ourselves as this or that. And so then I had to learn more of like non-attachment and to accept that there is a void there and I don't need to just like fill it back up right away. I can let it be.
mm, yes, yes. That's so key. It's okay to have that space and sit with it, like we were talking about before, to sit with that emptiness and like decide what you want to put there. It doesn't have to be something just to get rid of that feeling.
Mhm. Mhm.
I'm curious to like talk to you in 6 months and be like, so what's there now?
Well, there's already kind of something there.
Oh, okay, okay. Do you want to share that
Um,
now?
yeah, we can
Yeah.
totally go with that. Well, I've been already working on a second book, even in the middle of writing Breaking Free. So that will be my, my next couple of years, like slowly but surely, tending to that second child. But so that's, a side passion project I will have in the works. But also, I just graduated from shamanic practitioner training. So I am officially a shamanic healer and I am working with clients one-on-one, also in group settings as well, um, with their own self-healing journey and their own self-discovery journey. So I completely transitioned, just made this whole new path of helping other people, besides just through creative expression. It's actually through also, the tools that did help me in my healing journey a couple of years ago and also today.
That's beautiful. How can people contact you and like find out that information?
Yeah, you can find out my services and offerings on christinemarieheals.com. Or, my Instagram is also Christine Marie Heals, so you can find a little bit more about me and my journey. And there's poetry and photography and just, you know, all the things about healing and all of that, on my Instagram.
Definitely check out her Instagram. It's very soothing. Like the first time I saw it, I was just like, oh, this feels really nice. Like I just want to
Oh.
jump into your pictures. It does. Like
Oh,
it feels very calm and soothing and healing. So you've definitely put that feel out there. You can feel it through the screen.
oh, thank you. That's so sweet.
And where can people get your book, Breaking Free?
Yeah, you can either directly, honestly, you can DM me and ask me if you want a copy. And if you get a copy through me, you'll get a love note, an autograph, and also a shamanic love frequency that I pour into the book, that I received actually from grandmother ayahuasca. So I do a whole ceremony around anybody that buys a book from me. It's just like this package of love and energy, being sent to the person. Or you can buy it on Amazon as well, and that link is also, all over my website and in my bio and all that. So yeah, either way. And then also, if you're in Portland, it's also sold at New Renaissance Bookshop.
Nice. Is your goal to get it into more bookshops?
Yes, absolutely.
Woohoo! Book tour?
Book tour, spoken word, performances. I want to do the whole thing. Yeah, right now I'm working behind the scenes on uh, I'm doing the Audible, but I'm also doing something really special, and I'm not going to disclose because it's a really beautiful secret. I can't wait to share. And
Okay.
yeah, so
So keep your eyes out. New things are coming. And hey, maybe when this gets released, it will already be out and I can put a link in the not the bio, the description.
for sure, yeah.
I want to ask you another question, kind of going back before we to to you finishing the book and going through this grieving process and looking at attachment, where are you at now in the process of releasing your book?
Mm, I have her in my hands right now. Um, right now, I'm really practicing patience. I'm practicing also persistence and surrender again. Um, because slowly but surely she's been finding people's hands, that, is not my doing. I believe that's a divine connection, right? So right now I'm just really focusing on, yeah, just being patient with the process. I think a lot of the times we want, like, the results or the outcome to be this, like, fast, great, you know, thing that we just, okay, I wrote the book and I put it out there and now I'm, a bestseller and all these things, and those definitely, like, I have goals for that, but right now I'm just kind of allowing it to travel where it needs to be and allowing her to be free, honestly, with also, tending to her as well, like, but I'm just trying to not put so much pressure on what the outcome is, because I've put so much pressure on myself my whole life, and I just don't feel like I need to be doing that right now.
I think the poem on 225 ends, the very end is italics and says, trust the process.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I know she'll be embraced by the hands she's supposed to be in. And as time moves on and I kind of get into more of a routine with my shamanic healing services and, like, the whole thing, it's definitely going to be, there's going to be more traction and more movement with her, but she's
Yeah.
enjoying her rest right now.
No, I feel that and I resonate with that a lot. I can relate with the podcast. It was really hard for me to take a step back, and I released 8 weeks in a row, an episode every week. And then I'm in school right now, and it's just been so much that I was like, I have to take a step back. And I'm taking like a month and a half off until school's over, and like still doing some recordings and whatnot. But it was kind of like a hard thing for me to swallow, because I was like, momentum's building, but also I need to be able to show up fully. And as we talked about numerous times, you can't give from an empty cup. And like how I show up, the energy between me and the guest, like there's just so much, like energetically people feel that, that are listening. They're either drawn to it or they're not. And yeah. Yeah. So I think that's beautiful. And I'm excited to follow your journey through the next steps and see you on tour.
I love that. And yeah, and you know, good for you for giving you what you need. Like, if you were to keep going, you would just burn yourself out, right? Like,
Mhm.
it's this constant practice of self-compassion.
Yeah.
And yeah, so thank you for sharing that, because I'm sure so many people could use that message right now.
Yeah. And the burnout, that's a good point that you bring up, because the burnout, then I would probably just be like, I don't like this anymore. Like it's too stressful. But taking the step back, letting it breathe, then I'm
Yeah.
gonna come back to it. I was super excited. I haven't recorded in like a month, and I was super excited, like, yay, I get to have this conversation. So like that fire and that passion is still there. I didn't throw water on it by
Yeah.
burning myself out.
Yeah, yeah, and it's like we get scared that it's, like, gonna get lost or something, and it's like, no, if anything, you're, again, bringing more beautiful vitality and, magical energy to it when you have that moment of rest and taking a step back, so, Yeah, absolutely. I'm literally in the same wave as you. So it's great to give ourselves
Yeah.
permission. Yeah.
Yes, 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 yes. So I have a couple of questions I like to ask everybody at the end of an episode. Well, first of all, is there anything else that you wanted to share before I ask those couple of questions? Like anything that feels like it needs to come through, if you want to read another poem, if you want just the last questions.
Um, yeah, I mean, so I can, tell people that are listening that resonate and are on their own self-healing journey, um, that what I'm offering is to be your support, your guide, and to help you go through your own awakening journey, especially in this time right now. I just feel like it's so important that we have support. So, if anyone needs any support, I'm here. Just reach out to me and schedule a consultation call with me. It's free of charge, of course. I'm in the I'm in the wave of serving right now, really, because I feel like that's just what I'm being called to do, and it lifts me up with so much joy to see the breakthroughs I'm already seeing in my clients and to walk hand in hand on this healing journey together. So I just want to put that out there because I know right now it's quite a difficult time to feel like we have support that is meaningful and powerful, and I believe I have that to offer. So I want to share that, and maybe one more poem.
Yeah,
That's okay.
of
Yeah.
course.
Okay. I really enjoyed reading and I haven't done it in a while, so this is filling my cup up. So thank you. Let's see. Mm, I don't know which one I want. Oh, this is perfect for what I just disclosed. So page 146. Most of us spend entire lifetimes convincing ourselves we don't need anybody else to survive. But we need each other right here, right now, more than ever before. It is okay to ask for help. Thank
We're
you.
stronger together. Yeah, and like let's think about it. Like anybody that's super amazing at something typically has a coach of some sort, right? Like professional athletes have coaches. Like that's something we can all see and relate to. People that are really successful in business have business coaches. So, yeah, if you're on this healing journey, let Christine be your guide if you resonate with what she has to say.
I
Yeah.
would love that. I would be honored, truly.
Hmm. Okay, last two questions. If you could tell everyone in the world one thing, what would it be?
Oh my gosh. Oh, wow. The first thing that came to my mind is just don't be afraid of your inner light.
What is your current life mantra or motto?
Mm. Right now, I've been doing this every night before I go to bed. And I just say to myself before I fall asleep, I love you, Christine.
Hmm. Yes, yes. That's
Yeah.
beautiful. Well, excellent. And you already said how people can get a hold of you. So yeah, I think do you want to re-say how people can get a hold of you?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you can find me on my website and my offerings at christinemarieheals.com, and also on Instagram at christinemarieheals. And you can find all of my information and journey and about me there.
Yay. Thank you so much for taking the time to share your heart and soul and your baby and the process with us today.
Thank you so much for holding such sacred space. And I felt really, really safe. I felt really, really safe in this container. So it means a lot. And the work that you're doing, this podcast, Your Baby, is just as important. So I'm really grateful for you. So thank you so much, Nicole.
Thank you. Thank you for that reflection. That's why I'm doing it. Ugh. I feel so filled up.
Mm, love it.
This was actually recorded a year and a half ago, so my little month and a half break turned into much longer, but I am happy to be back. Check out Christine's Instagram to see what she's up to now. And if you enjoyed this episode, please share it, give it a like. Thank you so much for listening, beautiful humans. Until next time.